And welcome in to the Wheelhouse here, Elevation 5280 Sports and Lifestyle. Mark filling in once again for Matt this morning. Mark, how are we almost to the new year? Crazy.
It flew by, man. Time just doesn't stop, does it?
No,
Can't even give me a second to breathe.
it is flying past. You have a good Christmas. What plans for New Year's?
Yeah, Christmas was good. Santa took care of us this year. New Year's, we're gonna have a costume party. I think it's gonna be pretty fun. Our theme is celebrity casino night, so I'm going as Jackie Moon.
There you go.
from Semi Pro. So that'll be fun, and hopefully I get to win some money. What about you?
Nothing as of right now, but could change in the next 2 days, I guess. I don't know, that this Christmas seemed a lot more, I guess, stressful than years past. I don't know what it is. Maybe because it was like warm here, it didn't feel like Christmas. I don't know what it was, but it felt off. I'll just say that.
I understand that.
Felt a little off. Once again, want you follow and like all of our social media: Facebook, X, Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, as well, and head over to our home base, e5280sports.com. All of that stuff is up there as well. This pod is also brought to you by Pikes Peak Sports Cards. If you're in the Denver, Colorado Springs area, go check them out. Always puts on good events as well, so you can find that special card that you have been looking for. And busy sports weekend. It was a very bad sports weekend where I am, Mark, but we will get into all of that in Fire and Ice, which is right now.
It's now time for Fire.
Give me fuel, give me fire, give me that which I desire.
He's on fire.
I'm only one of burning desire. Let me stand next to your fire.
And Ice.
Ice Cube, baby.
You're as cold as ice. Ice, ice, baby.
Well, if you're new to the program, what we do here is our top three, kind of a who's hot, who's not, over the last week or so in the world of sports. And I mean, I'm full of ice. There's, just like Joe Burrow, there's ice in my veins, and not for a good reason. And there's just a lot to get to. It was, again, a pretty sorrowful weekend in Colorado sports. This just coming through the pipeline, by the way. Breaking news: Lakers agree on a trade that'll send D'Angelo Russell back to the Brooklyn Nets for Dorian Finney-Smith and Shake Milton. There's a name, Shake.
Wow.
I'll have some shake with
Shake
that.
some
Milton.
things up.
Yeah, shaking and bacon is what they're doing. So I don't know if that's finalized. It says agree on a trade. So D'Angelo Russell, that guy is interesting because I mean, you talk about like a guy like Russell Westbrook as well.
Yep.
Been all over the place, still, 17, 18 years in the league. Obviously, he's on the Nuggets, so we get to see him up close and personal now. Just no quit in the dude. The dude's, 37, 38. Talk about LeBron all you want, but, I mean, there is just zero quit and all hustle in Russell Westbrook. And I almost feel bad for these guys, Mark, that get shipped around so much, and it seems like nobody wants them, but at the same time, they always find a home. Russell got blamed for a lot of things with the Lakers and Clippers and wherever he's kind of been. It seems like the Lakers have not been wanting D'Angelo Russell on their roster for almost since he's been there, really.
I was gonna say pretty much since jump, yeah.
So now he's going back to the Nets.
I mean, I think it's a better fit, to be honest. The Lakers right now are just full of problems, man. Full of problems. Last year, pretty much all they did was they made a run at the cup, and that was it. They kind of were irrelevant. And I mean, pretty much since LeBron has been there, it's been a bust. So I
Yeah,
say good on him. Best of luck in Brooklyn. And fresh start.
yeah. I guess a fresh start since he's already
He's
been
already
there
been in
before.
that,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Uh, yeah, change of scenery sometimes helps players, but again, I don't know if it's really a change of scenery since he's seen that scenery. He's seen that scenery before.
Right,
So,
right.
all right, let's dive into our fire and ice list. Mark, where do you want to start this morning?
You know what? I'll let you start us off with the ice, man. I think there's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, so starting off, kind of touched on it. Colorado sports yesterday. That's why I've abandoned them, and I'm wearing all Iowa today. So there is, I don't even know what do. I mean, I guess we could start with the bowl games that nobody showed up in. First of all, the again, I'm still curious as to how and why Snoop Dogg was a sponsor of a bowl game, but I guess it's pretty cool. They had his name. They didn't even put the team names Mark in the end zone. It said Snoop Dogg in the end zone. But the old stomping grounds of Ben Roethlisberger, Miami of Ohio, absolutely destroyed CSU, Colorado State in the Snoop Dogg Arizona Bowl, 43-17. So that was not a good showing. And then, of course, in the Alamo Bowl, which battle of two Big 12 teams, BYU and CU, and the last games in college football for Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter, the Heisman Trophy winner. BYU absolutely all over Colorado yesterday, 36-14. And Shedeur did hook up with Travis Hunter for one last time to find the end zone. And there was Shedeur Sanders went out there for warm-ups and stuff wearing New York Giant cleats, by the way. And after he donned those cleats, Mark, his life already started to fall apart. So
I was gonna say
I'm blaming the Giants' cleats.
those fellas run, man.
Yeah. So I don't know if he wants to get drafted there or not, but he literally wore them in warm-ups, and his life already fell apart. So not a good look for plus they don't really match what CU is doing with their color scheme. So I don't know why he would. I mean, is it a good idea for him to even like hint at something like that?
My personal belief, no. But I mean, I'm talking for his personal brand. I mean, I don't think it's gonna hurt him in any sense of the word when it comes to the draft. Um, I just, I think for my personal, if it was me, I would try and stay as neutral as possible. I don't think it's really gonna necessarily hurt him, but obviously it hurt him. It hurt him in the score yesterday, like you said, down in those colors, and you just get the break speed off you. That doesn't help. And you know what? It also might be Dion's last game there if the NFL turns around and makes him an offer.
Yeah, we'll see. I heard Joel Klatt, who's a pretty good sports analyst, college football analyst for Fox Sports, also a former CU quarterback, and I think he was on the Cowherd show, and he said he doesn't know why Dion would leave, and I get it. The money's gonna be better. It's the NFL. You can't beat it. But CU, and this is I'm paraphrasing what Joel Klatt said, but CU gave him the keys and said, screw tradition, screw not wearing sunglasses inside. Do what you want, dude. Like put Prime all over the halls. Like we're Prime. We're not CU anymore. We're Prime, and completely change the culture. Turn that program around. I mean, is an NFL team going to let him do that? Is the question. If the Cowboys turn around and say, I don't think Jerry's going to relinquish that much control over to Dion. Let's face it, every coach that goes to Dallas is basically has some strings attached to them. So,
Oh yeah.
Depends on where he goes. Is an NFL franchise? I know college and NFL is a little bit different, but is an NFL franchise going to do what CU did and said, "Hey, here's the keys. Prime it up."
Yeah, no, I completely agree on that side. I think the only The only way he goes, I think, is if his kid gets drafted by the team that's going to take him, and then you got to worry about tampering and all that stuff. I was more, I was more leaning towards the side of being able to coach at the NFL level. I think that's going to be the only thing that can tempt him. And I think he would jump given the opportunity. I think not only would he jump given the opportunity, but like I said, especially if he gets into a situation between now and February, March area, he could very well be in the position where he can draft his own son, um, which obviously is going to be tempting in itself. But no, I completely agree with you. If he does go to the Cowboys, it's gonna be Jerry Ball all over again. If he goes to virtually anywhere in the NFL, it's gonna be play by the NFL rules. Insert team here. Outside of a team that really needs to shake it up, maybe the Giants, the Jags, the Raiders. I could see them trying to shake things up a bit, but not what CU's given him by any means of the definition.
Yeah, so we will see what the future holds, not only for Dion and Travis Hunter, they and Shador, they have a possibility of going 1-2 in the draft. I wonder how many times that's happened where two former college teammates are picked, back to back in the draft. So we will see what happens in April. And like you said, maybe February, March, if a team throws the bait, so to speak, out to Dion to see if he'll bite. So we will see what happens. And also the future of CU obviously will be lying in ruins if not only are they losing their two best players that they've had, they're also losing, a coach that shook things up and changed the culture and turned that program around. Obviously wasn't a good outing or showing in the bowl game that preceded the season that, you got 9 wins, but still overall a good outlook on CU this year. So we will see what happens. All right, probably the biggest ice, I guess, yesterday in Colorado sports, the Denver Broncos once again fail to not only fail, Mark, but choke their way to not still claim a playoff spot. All they had to do was beat the Chargers the week before. Couldn't do that. Had an 11-point lead in the third quarter. Threw that away. And yesterday, I mean, we'll get to it in the fire list, but Knicks versus Burrow was absolutely electric. Um, you know, at times, Bo Nix, he looks like a savvy veteran, Mark. He looks like nothing is bothering him. He goes out there with a poise and a coolness that not a lot of rookies possess. But then, like the very next possession, very next drive or whatever, he looks like a rookie again. That interception was just stupid.
Scored.
I know he got tapped on the arm as he threw it, so that may have caused the ball to flutter a bit. But you go to overtime, and all you had to do was get a first down. That's all you needed. Even if the game ended in a tie, Mark, the Broncos would still have made the playoffs. All they had to do was get a first down. And then after that, I don't know how Marvin Mims caught that with two guys defending him, falling to the side of the end zone. Bo Nix really wanted to go for two there. I would almost have felt better if they lost on a failed 2-point conversion trying to win it in regulation than not even being able to get a first down in overtime.
Dude, I'm not a Broncos fan at all, but it was rough to watch. You know, there was a lot of me that was kind of just rooting for Bo Nix and Sean Payton, just because it was interesting. At the beginning of the year, I had him written off. If I'm being honest, I was like, it's gonna be a couple years, and they stuck around. They've been able to fight pretty much out of every situation. And before yesterday, I think the only losses that they've had were pretty much within their own division and like some decent teams better than the Bengals. So, I was like, man, they're turning this thing around. It's going to be interesting to see how they can do and fare in a you know winner takes all kind of game. But ouch, that hurt my feelings.
Yeah, so 2 weeks in a row now they fail to get into the playoffs. And to be quite honest, Mark, I mean, I don't know if even if they make the playoffs, I know everyone's record is reset, but the Broncos are 0-6 now against teams with 500 plus records. I know the Bengals didn't have a 5, but that Bengals offense is incredible.
Yeah.
Riley Moss, the cornerback, he missed the last 4 weeks. He could have came back last game against almost at San Diego against the Chargers, and maybe they should have threw him in to knock some of the rust off because he looked like he hadn't played in 2 months. I mean, he had 21 tackles, Mark, as a cornerback. So they were targeting him all night long. T. Higgins went off, obviously, for 3 touchdowns.
One
You know,
amazing catch before the end of the game.
yeah, Jamar Chase had his catches, but didn't have a big game. And credit to Pat Surtain for that. But yeah, they should have probably played Riley Moss a little bit against the Chargers to knock some of that rust off after missing 4 weeks. Because he did look like he had no idea what he was doing out there a lot of times, and I get it. You're not going to hold that Bengals offense down for long. I mean, Joe Burrow almost threw for 500 yards by himself. I mean, I don't know if you're watching Hard Knocks, Mark, but the in season is following the AFC North. So I've almost come to like some of the Bengals. It's funny because I was like I really, no offense, Mark, I was like I really don't like Aaron Rodgers, but after watching Hard Knocks with the Jets, I was like he actually kind of be a cool dude to hang out with. So Hard Knocks usually changes my mind on a lot of teams that or a lot of people too that I think I didn't like, but it'll be interesting to see what they say in Hard Knocks after this game if they do so in the next episode. But yeah, it was just a crazy game, electric game at times, disappointing at times. But again, all you needed was a first down, and you're in the playoffs.
And they had a couple of areas where they could have locked the game in before that as well, and not to pour it on at all, but I mean, man, now I mean I feel that this was their best chance because next week they got the Chiefs. Now, obviously, we don't know who the Chiefs will be playing, especially with Patty's ankle.
Well, it just
I
came
mentioned
down. It just came down this morning that Mahomes is sitting. So
yeah. So I mean, you've got an opportunity. It's the planets were aligning and it slipped through their fingers. It was tough. Like I said, now you got your backs up against the wall. You don't control your own fate anymore with the Bengals being 8-8, the Colts and the Dolphins lurking. It's tough. It's real tough. And on the Hard Knocks thing, I feel just kind of Pat McAfee said it a few weeks ago. They knock it out of the park. I mean, these are things that we don't ever get to see, and they've gotten that opportunity to get in those areas and and just show us what we would never be able to see without them. And they just knock it out of the park. Hard Knocks, I love it. I've always loved Hard Knocks. You know, and but I will say this: they really get people's hopes up watching these guys work out and do their thing because everybody came high on the Bears, and I was like, wow, let's calm it down. It's still the Bears. Let's relax. And lo and behold, they're 4-12. So
yeah, haven't won a game in 10 weeks. Yeah, yeah, just bad out there. I know you, and then like in the Hard Knocks thing, and we'll get off the Hard Knocks thing in a moment. But that it was so it was tough seeing dudes get cut. And they got rid of that. They did get rid of that because I think I saw the reasoning why, but I was just like, why? Watching, you get attached to some of these guys and follow their story, and you're like, oh man, I hope he makes it. And then he gets called into the office and gets cut, and they show it on TV, and it's pretty detrimental to those people who get cut, and so they stopped showing that. Was it last season or the season
the
before
season
that?
before,
Yeah.
yeah, it was gut wrenching. Watching some of those guys, and like you said, I get it. Obviously, if I'm that player, I don't want to relive the shit more than I have to. But it's like you said, you get attached to them, and as a fan, and you really want to be able to follow up on the guy and check in, and it's a double-edged sword, man. But once again, Hard Knocks, just gotta tip your cap.
Yeah. Do you like how they have three different? Now they have training camp. What is it? Off season, training camp, and in season.
Yes.
Three different. Well, now really, the in season one's pretty cool. They're following an entire division.
Right. That's, I think, been my favorite, especially, you know, and this is stuff everybody's been talking about, but listening to Mike Tomlin, listening to Zach, listening to, Harbaugh, and just how they prepare for each other has been my favorite thing to watch, because every week it's like, you know, if you're the Bengals, you're talking about, playing the Ravens, you're talking about playing the Steelers, you're talking about how these guys are going to beat you down physically. And I think the most interesting thing has been how they prepare for not only a tough opponent, but a division rival.
Yeah. Yeah. So the last probably couple weeks have been easy for the Hard Knocks crew because they were playing each other, so they didn't really have to travel that far. So that was probably easy for the crew to get around. But yeah, I'm interested to see what's inside the Bengals locker room after this week. So we'll get hopefully a glimpse into that and see what they have to say. So yeah, Colorado sports yesterday absolutely bad, except for the Nuggets, who came away with a win over the Detroit Pistons. Almost, they wanted to give it away. They wanted to. They had like a 20-point lead, and then it was like a 7-point lead in the fourth quarter, and they had to bring back in Joker and Murray and everybody else to try to shut it down. But so good on them. All right, next on the ice list. I don't know if you caught these stupid comments. We try not to mention this dude at all, Mark, on this show because, well, it's just annoying, quite frankly. But even you could throw Kevin Durant's comments in there. Both of them kind of said, Christmas Day is our day, talking about the NBA because there was two Christmas games? Was it three? I don't even remember. There was two Christmas days, yeah, for the NFL that were strictly on Netflix, and a lot of people even argue, Mark, that the NBA should be starting around Christmas because the season is just stupid and weird, and now you're going up again, and now if they could, Mark, the NFL would probably try to play every day if they could. They could. They would have a game every day if they could. And they probably could, but they don't because I'm sure the NFLPA would probably really vote that down. It would be wild. They don't even wasn't when Thursday night started, Mark, that the NFLPA didn't really even want those games, and neither do the fans because they become absolute trash. And we saw that last week with the lowest scoring game of the season as Seattle took down the aforementioned Bears 6-3. Stupid game, ugly game.
What an atrocious game.
Yeah. So if you don't have Prime, you didn't miss anything. And so LeBron said, but he did say not only with the Christmas thing, but he said, I'm a football player. I don't mind the physicality, bro, dude. Like, you're called king of Casterly Flop for a reason. All right, LeBron. Sure, you look jacked, you lift weights, but these dudes, Mark, I mean, when they get in fights, they slap somebody and then they run away.
Yeah, they're worse than soccer players now. And listen, before anybody jumps on me, I did play Division I soccer. Okay, that was the sport I was able to go for. So, but we all know how it is, man. I mean, and if we're being honest, I don't think LeBron's played defense and played physical since the Bush administration. So I'm just saying he has no room to talk about physical. The only thing physical with LeBron is him getting up and getting dressed in the morning. That's the only physical part of his day because he's either getting calls or he's walking back on defense or he's complaining about this and that. And Listen, I used to be okay with the guy after 20 years in the league, and he gets to 40. Everybody was like, "Oh, well, look, what an amazing that was an attendance record." I just his mouth and everything else, and now this, you know, say what you will, but I'm not buying the whole illness or injury thing of him sitting out. I think there's other looming dark facts that might come out on the guy just because never really thought he was a good dude.
Well, yeah, is he really sick or is he trying to incinerate all the Diddy oil? That's what we got to be. That's what we got to be concerned about.
I'm telling you, I really truly believe that there's going to be some dark facts that come out and that he's trying to get in front of right now.
Yeah. So yeah, he's not playing. I don't think he's playing today because instead of an illness. And then he missed a week almost a couple weeks ago. He missed a few games. So yeah, he's skeletons in the closet there, maybe. But where there's smoke, there's fire, Mark. So we will see what happens in the upcoming weeks and the whole thing. But I'm trying to find where. I mean, it wasn't even close, the ratings on Christmas, Mark. I mean, I think the NFL averaged like 25 million viewers on Christmas. That was the peak for both games, and I think the NBA was not even 6 million.
They get blown out of the water.
Yeah, but hey, Christmas is the NBA's day, and not only that, Mark, because you had the NBA games on like 3 different networks. ABC, ESPN. I know that's kind of the same network; they're owned by each other, but the football games, Mark, were only on Netflix, and they still destroyed the NBA.
It wasn't, and what's funny to me too is the NFL, like we talked about, only had the 2 games, and in the NBA world, they had games like pretty much 3 every part of the day, right? Like I think there was like 2 or 3 in the morning. I think there was like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and they had 2 for the nightcap. So even being outnumbered in games, they still outshined them.
Yeah, and only exclusive on a streaming service, which is pretty crazy as well. All right, number 1 on the ice list, Mark. I don't know what's up with the Sacramento Kings. If you watch them play, they look like they should never be beaten. I mean, you got Sabonis, DeRozan, De'Aaron Fox on that team, Malik Monk, who I don't even know if he's a starter. I think he's coming off the bench, and he is just a freak athlete as well. But the other day, they go ahead and fire Mike Brown, the head coach, who not only was not really having all that. I mean, they were 13-18 when he got fired, Mark. Now they're on a 6-game losing streak. Still plenty of time to turn the season around. They're sitting in the 12th spot in the Western Conference. But I mean, you talk about these in-season coach firings, and now former King great Doug Christie will be the interim head coach. That'll be interesting. But I mean, they've had more head coaches in the last couple years than they've had playoff wins. They've had 7 head coaches in the last 10 years and only 3 playoff wins in that time span as well. And I don't know if you heard the comments by former Kings head coach and now current Nuggets head coach Michael Malone. He said there's no balls, no class, that organization. He goes, you know how I know that? I'm paraphrasing. You know how I know that? Because I was fired by the same person. And not only that, Mike Brown literally won Coach of the Year last year, and not even halfway through the season, they fire him. Crazy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, looking at the roster sheet, they definitely. I mean, they should be within the top 4, in my opinion, of the Western Conference, and they're not even breaking the top 10 or the top 8. Dude, and it's just atrocious going out. Watching the Kings the last handful of years in general, just kind of, I don't know, man. It's crazy. Just when you thought they had it turned around, then they come out and have a season like this. Like you said, still plenty of time to turn around. But I mean, you gotta do it right now, though, right? You can't afford any more skids. You gotta get on the horse, and hopefully some other games go your way that you can't control, and try and get in there at a wild card, because this is tough. This is tough.
Yeah, and also what Michael Malone said, he's like, when things are going great, Sabonis and Fox are going to get the credit. When things are going bad, it's always the coach.
Yep.
Because you can't, I guess you can't fire, 15 dudes who make up the team, but you can always fire the coach. Um, it's always been a double-edged sword when it comes to firing coaches, Mark, because obviously, you look at the NFL, they're installing the game plan, they have set of plays and stuff like that. Um, it's the same in every sport. The coach is always going to get the blame. It's always easy to fire one person. You have coordinators that you can fire, position coaches you can fire. Like, are you going to fire? Are you going to fire Zach Martin, or are you going to get rid of Joe Burrow? I mean, it's, it's always the coach's fault when things are going absolutely wrong. But and then the players have to go out and execute it. Which again, in basketball, you have kind of set plays, design plays, but most of the time it's just free range, impromptu play where you're just running back and forth trying to get the ball in the basket. So it's always interesting when coaches get fired, because you're like, it's, of course they're always going to get the blame.
In basketball, I think it's even harder because, like I said, it comes down to a point where you need your shooters to shoot, and you need your big men in the paint to play defense and grab and get those boards. I mean, that's where the game's won and lost, and you can come up with the best game plan in the world if your top three guys aren't doing their thing. It's kind of just out of your hands, and it's unfortunate, but that's just the world of basketball and coaching in general. I like you said, it sucks because I've seen plenty of times, especially because of being a Padres fan, and I've seen plenty of times where it's like, what do you want this guy to do? Look at this
Yeah.
roster, and it's, well, he didn't turn it around enough, and it's like, come on, but like you said, you're not firing a $300 million Joe Burrow, right? You just can't do that. You got to fire the coach. I do get it. I don't like it.
Yeah, like, is it the coach's fault that your best 3-point shooter is 0 for 8 from beyond the arc today? Like, is that the coach's fault? Like, is it the manager's fault that, I'm just throwing out names, that Aaron Judge went 0 for 5 today? Is that the coach's fault? Like,
Right.
I don't know.
Well, and I've seen.
Is it
and
the
I've seen-
coach's fault that Joe Burrow threw 3 interceptions? Like,
And what was it? It was I don't know, maybe 8-9 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer now. But Mark McGuire at the time was the hitting coach for the Dodgers, and I forget which big player it was, but they went on a skid where it was like 0 for 10, and they fired the hitting coach, and I was like, he can't grab the bat and swing for him.
I'm sure he could if he I'm sure he would if he could.
Right.
So
But
yeah.
like you said, you're not firing that big contract. You're not going to do it.
Yeah, it's and I'm sure coaches know what they're getting into when they take these jobs. They always ask, is this coach on the hot seat? I think coaches are always on the hot seat. If you're a guy like you mentioned before, Mike Tomlin, Harbaugh over in Baltimore, they almost are. I don't want to say their job is like almost secured every year, because Mike Tomlin's been there 12 years or whatever it is now. I mean, the Steelers have only had 3 head coaches in like the last 50 years. It's remarkable. From Dick LeBeau to, oh my God, his name just slipped out of my mind. Bill Cowher. I know his name was Bill. Bill Cowher, and now Mike Tomlin. Literally 3 coaches in the last 50 years. Mike Tomlin has never had a losing record in his time in Pittsburgh. It's crazy.
Yeah, and a lot of people they try to kind of touch on Tomlin for a minute. It's crazy to me because and I get it. A lot of the problem is the Steelers fans have been spoiled with that franchise, but when after Ben left, and they kind of got into those sticky seasons where it was very drawn out, a lot of injuries, barely coming into the 8-8 season, and barely missing the playoffs or getting there and then getting blown out. A lot of people don't realize, one, the AFC North for the longest time was the toughest division in the hardest hitting division. And then he would blow his wad trying to get to the playoffs. By the time he got there, there was nothing left. I mean, you can only go back to the well so many times. And I think a lot of people forget that. And it's like, dude, you got to really understand, one, how hard it is to win in the NFL, but two, to completely do that year after year and come back and I hate the Steelers, but it's remarkable what he's been able to do with them.
Yeah, it's crazy. And my point that I was getting to is, it almost seems like those guys, I guess they're special guys who seem like they're never on the hot seat. Like Mike Tomlin, like unless something absolutely devastating happens, like you said, they get to the play. They spend so much effort getting to the playoffs, and then they don't go anywhere in the playoffs. Maybe eventually ownership will be like, dude, you're having good regular seasons, but we need a Lombardi trophy eventually. So maybe that's where, whoever makes those decisions, I guess ownership or general manager, I don't know who's really necessarily is in the next pecking order above a head coach, but whoever makes that decision will be like, dude, I know you haven't had a losing season in 15 years, but we also haven't had a Lombardi trophy in 15 years. So we need to bring one of those back. So maybe that's where they finally draw the line. I don't know, but it seems like there's certain guys who are never on the hot seat. And then, 98% of the league is on the hot seat because for whatever reasons, but yeah. So always the coach's fault is what we're getting down to.
That's the fall guy.
Yeah. All right, Mark, you had an interesting one here to kick off the fire list. It was a pretty. I did not see this, but you brought it up kind of pre-show.
Yeah. So I mean, I think this is cool. So the international play for the World Junior Hockey Team, the Americans, putting one on yesterday. And so their goal song. So the horn goes off, and the goal song is the solo to Freebird. And poor Germany had to hear it 10 times yesterday as they absolutely lit up the score sheet. And they're also leading in their table right now over Canada as well, so with 6 points. So something to tune into. I know I'm definitely going to start watching. I would love to see the United States win the gold. And but I just think it was great. 10 goals, and got to listen to Freebird 10 times.
Yeah, I'm sure Germany absolutely loved that. So 10 goals, that is pretty crazy. And then to hear the old riff of Freebird. Yeah, I mean, if you're Germany, you're like, all right, forfeit, white flag.
Yeah, they definitely left that arena hating that song, I bet.
Yeah. It that'll happen to you. Well, not only that, you're probably frustrated not only with the song, but you're giving up. You got to hear it 10 times. Giving up 10 goals to hear that. So, yeah, that's pretty crazy. We kind of touched on this on the ice list, but next on the fire list, we kind of touched on it, so we won't spend too much time on it. But Knicks versus Burrow yesterday was crazy. Like I said, Bo Nix goes out there, looks like a savvy veteran, and then literally the next possession, next drive, he looks like a rookie again and throws a bad pass, bad interception, takes a bad sack. He's taken a lot of bad sacks this year, but kind of mentioned at the top of the show as well, Joe Burrow had ice in his veins. This is a game not only that both teams need to have, but Cincinnati, for starting the season so bad to find themselves, lurking in a playoff spot. I said that, if the Broncos get into the playoffs, I don't know how far they're going to go. I understand, your record resets and anything can happen, but I'm just taking the sample size that we see in the regular season, Mark. They haven't beat anybody with a 500 record. They've lost 2 crucial games that they needed to get into the playoffs. So how well are you going to do against a Buffalo or a Baltimore or whoever you end up playing? And Cincinnati, Mark, I think if they get into the playoffs, they actually have a chance to go pretty far with that offense.
Yeah, no, I agree. I feel like they're the AFC side of kind of Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers at this point. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I comparing Joe Burrow to Baker Mayfield, but I'm talking about the kind of momentum and the kind of pesky team that they can end up being. And I mean, like you said, the record does reset, and the Bengals might have a chance of being the actual Bengals that they should have been all year. But to touch on the Bo Nix and the Joe Burrow thing, Bo Nix, I mean, I got to tip my cap, going blow for blow with Joe, 3 tutties apiece. I mean, 3 tutties apiece. He blinked once. I just, you got to be proud of yourself. Obviously, not the result that you wanted, and definitely wanted to be able to clinch a playoff spot. But your first year, and you went tutty for tutty for one of the elite quarterbacks. 24 of 31, 219 yards, 3 tutties. Only one oopsie there. So I mean, once again, you got to tip your cap. I think Denver's got a bright future with this kid.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that one oopsie turned into a turned into a touchdown on the other side. So that obviously you clean that up. The play calling towards the end of the game, clock management was a little bit interesting to say the least. Again, all you needed was a first down, but it was cool to see Burrow versus Knicks in a playoff-like atmosphere. Obviously, both teams needed to win to get into the playoffs, but it was still cool to see. All right, Matt, wrapping up the fire list. We have the last week. I mean, this wraps up week 17 in the NFL. And then one more week 18. Weird to say week 18 as there's 18 games now, but all of the top seeds and stuff like that probably resting their guys next week. Obviously, you have the Chiefs, the number 1 seed, by the way, in the NFC, still up for grabs as was it Minnesota and Philadelphia?
Yep, Minnesota and Philly
still fighting for that number 1 seed in the NFC. So both of those teams want and probably need that first round bye to kind of settle things down and rest some guys, but it's still up for grabs. Philadelphia coming in 12, or Detroit, excuse me. Detroit's up there as well as 13-2, and Minnesota 13-2. But if Philly wins, it's going to be interesting as well, as they sit at 12-3. So they need both Minnesota and Detroit to lose in the next couple of weeks. So that number 1 seed is still up for grabs. But the NFC North, we touched on the AFC North when it comes to hard knocks and stuff like that, hard-hitting division, don't like each other. How about 3 teams in the NFC North have playoff spots locked up as well? It'll be interesting to see Detroit and Minnesota both with the same record coming into week 17, Mark.
Yeah, and it's crazy to me. This is kind of the reason why I like the expansion. Because now, don't get me wrong, you got your division, and I understand that, but you've got the NFC South, who's going to be able to squeak in there when you talk about the Vikings and the Packers have. I think they beat everybody except for the Lions and Philly. We would be first. Either team would be first in any other division in the NFC. Yet, you get to squeak on in, with stuff like that. That's why I'm for the expansion. But man, what a tough division to be in. Number 1 and number 2 is what are you really winning? One, having to go in as a wild card and you get to play I mean, your reward would be being able to play somebody from the NFC South or the NFC West. Nobody else you really want to have to face right away.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Rams got a much needed win yesterday as well as they take control of that NFC West as well. So Seattle desperately needs another win to try to keep pace, maybe sneak in as a wild card. You have, like you mentioned, Atlanta and Tampa Bay 8-7. Almost reminds me, I think it was 2011 when the Broncos won the division with an 8-8 record, backed themselves into the playoffs, and won a playoff game against the aforementioned Steelers on that Tebow to Demaryius Thomas play. And then they next week absolutely got destroyed by the Patriots. But I guess that shows that anything can happen. Even if you back into the playoffs with an 8-8 record, you can't finish with that kind of record anymore. But because there's an odd number of games that you play. But I mean, and then I think it's tonight, Sunday Night Football, Mark, a big game with Washington to keep pace in whatever seeding comes down to these last couple weeks of the regular season. I mean, the AFC West could have 3 playoff teams as well, as the Chargers locked up theirs yesterday with a big win. The AFC South, Indianapolis, like you mentioned, still fighting. They need to finish. They need to win their next 2 games. Cincinnati obviously needs to win a couple games. Miami needs to win. So a lot of these teams still fighting, but a lot of these teams now have a chance to rest towards the end of the season.
Right. Agreed. And this is the part of the season too where everybody's kind of going to start scoreboard watching and see what's going on. And I think because of yesterday, the Bengals find themselves in the best position. I think they've got the tiebreaker. And yeah, if you're the Colts or the Dolphins or the Broncos right now, it's playoffs now. Your playoff season starts right now. And for the Broncos, it started yesterday. Technically it started against the Chargers. But and then you got that NFC side where, like you've already touched on it. So that tonight's game is the Commies and the Falcons, man. It's so interesting to me because obviously the Commanders having a hell of a season. Jaden Daniels having a hell of a season. Obviously shoe in for Rookie of the Year. And then the Falcons benching their guy that they went all out for, and their rookie puts them in the position where, hey, maybe it's not over, right? Maybe we still got a chance. And maybe the Bucks dropping one really helped them out. And I mean, next week, if you're a Falcons fan, you've got the Panthers to end the season, and the Bucks have the Saints. So today's going to be extremely important all around the board.
Yeah, and then if your teams like Cleveland, like maybe Atlanta, like Carolina, like Dallas, do you think some of these teams like that to play spoiler? Because
absolutely.
I mean, if Carolina beats Tampa, I mean, Atlanta still needs to beat the Commanders, and that's kind of a big task. But Cleveland, do they want to end Miami season with the loss? Carolina, they could potentially end Tampa season with the loss. The Giants could potentially end the Colts season with the loss. Do you think these teams like playing spoilers? Like, hey, we're 2-14, but we're going to come out and give it our all to make sure you don't make the playoffs either. Do you think teams like being in that position as well when they really have nothing to play for?
I really do believe that they love to play spoiler. I think once you hit that point of your season where it's like, okay, we can't win anything, so let's go out with it comes down to let's go out with some pride, and let's knock these guys either have a number 1 seed or out of the playoffs in general. And I mean, you got to think about it too. Look at it today with the Cowboys playing the Eagles. They got a chance to ruin something there. Next week, the Cowboys have the Commanders. They're playing their division rivals to end the season. I think that right there sells itself in that locker room. Obviously, if you're the Browns got to be angry enough, man. They've been so close yet so far with their roster moves. I think, especially against a team like the Colts, where it's like, it's not the Bills, it's not the Chiefs. They're not running away with it. hey, this is our chance to ruin someone's day. I think absolutely that's in every locker room today. With those teams that aren't making it and saying why not.
Yeah, I hope they show in Hard Knocks the Cleveland what they're preparing against with Miami. Um, and he almost is like Jameis Winston also gets benched last week, and they throw in I almost said Dominic Rogers Cromartie, but he's got one of those hyphenated names, Dorian. I think his name is Dorian Peoples Rogers or whatever it is. And then also Monday Night Football, 49ers have a chance to maybe spoil the number 1 seed for the Lions. So there's always those chances of, hey, let's go out, screw the Lions. They're not getting the number 1 seed against us. So I always wonder what the mindset is when you have a chance to play spoiler, what guys are saying, what the coaches are saying, because, you're going into these, especially if you're like, I guess the Giants, Mark, or the Jets, they're like, hey, we're 3-15. Like, what do we have to lose? Do we go out, just throw in the white towel, play a bunch of young guys, see what we have, or say, hey, we're playing everybody. We're making sure this team does not get the number 1 seed against us. So I always wonder what those conversations are like, and I hope they kind of show. I know Miami's not a too big of a threat, but Cleveland coming in that game 3-12. Hey, let's make sure. I mean, they're on the brink of not being in the playoffs anyway, but let's knock them out for sure. So I'm always interested to see what those rooms are like and conversations are like.
I've been fortunate enough. I've had a couple of guys on my show that have made it to the big time, and I got to talk with Lenny Jones. He was on that 49ers team Super Bowl run when they lost to the Ravens, I believe. When the lights went out, remember all that?
Yeah.
So he was there, and he getting to talk to him. A lot of it too is if the players and the coaching staff gel and they've got a really good atmosphere. A lot of their thinking at this time of the year is, hey, let's win one for coach, so he's not so much on the on the hot seat, or give him something positive to end on that he could go and talk to the ownership about. There's a lot of kind of let's win it for Skipper type thing. So something like with the Niners, I guarantee you Shanahan is high of places as he's taking this team. I guarantee you he's got that kind of love and support where the guys are sitting in there like, hey, obviously unless you're Devondre Campbell, but the guys are sitting in there saying, hey, let's win it for him. We had a rough year. Let's end on a positive note.
Yeah. So I hope they show that in Hard Knocks and stuff like that. And it'll be interesting to see what Baltimore week was like on Christmas. They absolutely dismantled the Texans. Texans got a safety, and that was it. Baltimore took care of them 31-2, and obviously KC ran rough shots over Pittsburgh as well. Pittsburgh had a chance to kind of secure that division as well, and that AFC North still up for grabs, really. Pittsburgh needs a win desperately this next week. Baltimore needs to lose for Pittsburgh. Both teams are in the playoffs, but now that number 1 seed, or excuse me, that AFC North division crown still up for grabs as well. So, and those teams have been fun to follow on Hard Knocks as well.
Oh yeah. Hard Knocks has been knocking it out of the park, man.
Yeah. So I'm interested. I think the Broncos were in discussion for like one of them. I don't know if it was like training camp or off season. I don't know if it was Sean Payton who said no. let's give it another year. But it would be interesting to see if they did a Broncos one, because it would have been cool this year. Sean Payton coming in. I know this is the second year. Getting the guy he wanted in the draft and stuff like that would have been cool to see. And then as the season is turning out. But yeah, it's always like, man, I hate that team, I hate that person. Then you watch Hard Knocks, you're like, kind of look at them in a different light now.
Right, yeah, I think that's been my favorite. Like I said, Hard Knocks being able to um, introduce and or change your mind because in your head that this is the guy that like you said, I absolutely hate, and then it's like, wait a minute, now I'm rooting for him. And
Yeah.
not only that, but you also get to see some of the personable side of everybody, where it's like, okay, hey, on the field it's obviously adrenaline and this and that, where you're talking to the guy, talking about the guy who's, now that the adrenaline ain't going, the crowd ain't going. It's like, hey, this guy's got a decent mindset, man. I'm rooting for him now all of a sudden.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, I was really surprised at my Aaron Rodgers flip. I was like, yeah, he seems like actually a cool guy.
As a Packers fan, though, I get it really bothered me because there was so much hate, unnecessary hate that he got. And it's like, the only ones to blame for that is the Packers front office. They do that with every player. I mean, they towards the end they treat him like crap, and then they kind of let the media hounds on him. And it's like, after that season, before he left, after that season, he flat out said it in a press conference. He's like, I'm going to need some time to think. The team reached out, was like, hey, that's completely fine. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey, we're trading him. And then Rodgers come out and said, well, you know what? I'm going to play another year. And then everybody wanted to hate him. And a lot of people forget, too, that last season in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers is washed up. He needs to call it. It's over. Gets traded to the Jets, and all of a sudden, Jets are Super Bowl contenders. And look out. And this is, Aaron Rodgers can take him to the promised land. It's like the media has screwed him over so many times. And, and it bothered me because I was like, that's not what he said. I was there when he said it. Like, I heard it. And they twisted everything he said, and they made him look like a prima donna and just a jerk. And I'm glad that he came out with his thing, Enigma. You need to watch that if you haven't. That was really cool to see.
Yeah, I've seen it on whatever I think is it Netflix. Yeah, I've seen it on there. Just haven't had a chance to sit down and watch it. But yeah, it always seems to flip kind of what you think of guys, teams, or whatever. So yeah, if you haven't watched any of the Hard Knocks, go watch it. Yeah, the AFC North has been really cool to how they kind of transition from team to team. It's pretty cool.
Yep, agreed. I'm hoping to see a Packers one.
Yeah, so I mean, I read somewhere or saw somewhere that just some teams are just totally against it. They don't want the cameras inside the locker rooms and stuff like that, which I can understand as well. But eventually, right? They're going to run out of teams. So they got to think of something, right?
I mean, the NFC North, I think, would have been awesome to cover, especially this year.
Yeah. Well, they did your Bears, so they at least they did it before the season went to total garbage.
They got everybody hyped up, and I was like, listen, don't get me wrong, I love Hard Knocks too, but let's not lose focus of who the Bears really are.
Yeah.
And everybody did, man. Everybody was so high on that, and I was like, I hate to sound like a hater because it truly wasn't that. I mean, yes, I do hate the Bears, but it really wasn't just because I hate the Bears where I'm like, all right, guys, let's calm it down.
Yeah, they gave people hope before the season started, and then
really did.
And then they threw a match in the dumpster, and now where we are, we're at where we're at now. So that's what happened. But that is going to do it for us here on the Wheelhouse. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Don't forget the podcast version will be on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcasts later today. Don't forget to go to e5280sports.com. All of the on-demand stuff is on there as well as don't forget to catch Katie Max Between the Lines on the front page. If you're a wrestling fan, catch Pro Wrestling Daily with Andre. That's on the front page as well. So go tune in to those as well, and go check out Mark's show, Back to the Drawing Board, every Saturday. So we got that going as well. Right after us here in about 45 minutes, Undrafted Uncensored is back. They were on a little hiatus, but Colin, Nick, and Joe are back at noon, so go catch them. They'll get you caught up on some Colorado sports as well. But Mark, thank you for filling in once again.
Thanks for having me. Always a joy.
All righty, but we're going to get out of here. Enjoy the games today. Maybe we'll see some more playoff spots locked up, seeds locked up as well. But for Mark, I am Michael. We will talk to you next week.